Miners. I'm your host, Edward Mbeche, CEO and founder of Helen Super App. Today, I have my guest, Brandon Neely. Brandon is a serial entrepreneur, profit first and bank on yourself professional, and the co-host of Worth, like not to mess up with my accent, is Worth Financial Podcast with his wife and business partner, Amanda. Brandon, how are you, my friend?
I'm great. How are you, Ed?
I'm good. I'm good. Amanda is not going to join us.
No, you got the B team here.
Yeah.
Literally, she's the A team and I'm the B team. So,
Listen,
uh,
good. She's
but
gonna mi-
you
she's
know,
gonna miss an awesome conversation.
yeah, she
That's mhm.
she's the brains. You got to get her up there, um, doing all kinds of crazy math.
Good, good. So let's do this, Brandon. Before we go, I know sometime with my accent, I mess up words because I'm trying to kind of spell out the word. Can you just do a quick summarize? Who's Brandon Neely?
Yeah, I am like you said, serial entrepreneur,
Mhm,
business owner. I used to own a coffee shop.
mhm.
One of the places, if you want to like get rich, don't start a brick and mortar cafe, do something else. Um, and learned a lot of what not to do there. And then we moved into the financial world. I ended up in this crazy industry. I didn't realize that Dave Ramsey loves to hate on the stuff that we do. Um, However, I knew it like changed my life. It's kind of like learning something and experiencing something, and then you tell all your friends about it because it's made a big difference.
Yeah.
And then you find out everything you have been doing and how it worked and all of this. Somebody else says it's wrong and bad, and I'm like, it changed my life for the better. Like, how can you say that? Uh,
It-
and
is that because maybe they never went through this the same stage you went through, like where you had the experience of that instead of them? Because there's always two things.
yeah,
You have
yeah,
you have the knowledge of really knowing because you did it, and then
yeah.
there's the knowledge of reading from a book. You kind of
Yeah, I think some is, there's when it comes to like the Dave Ramsey of the world, we're taught invest in the market, everything will go up and to the right. There's blanket statements, and now I'm in the financial as a financial person, nothing is ever everybody's unique, right? And so strategies and all of that may work for you and may be different for somebody else, especially when you're a business owner or when you're self-employed, right? When you're a business owner and self-employed, I don't know about you, but when you're self-employed, there's no company match, right? There's other rules that you have to play along with, and the key and main thing is cash flow, access to cash, access to the ability to grow, and using these kind of systems that we've created. Profit, no, we didn't create, but profit first,
yeah.
infinite
Let's
banking.
let, let's do this, Brandon. Actually, before we kind of jump in, maybe kind of bring value to people,
Mhm.
kind of trying to learn a lot about this financial because maybe we can kind of go to even explaining almost like a third grade kind of
Yeah.
level. So let's introduce people a little bit about who's Brandon Neely. Just let's go way back. I always kind of trying to go way back. Where did you grow up?
Oh
Like
yeah.
did you have because with this, like you've been a business, you're a serial entrepreneur, so you started business. Did you have this when you were a kid? Did you sell lemonade? Did you sell newspaper? Let's go way back. Where you from, Brandon?
Yeah, I was listening to your last guy, um, and he was talking about living in Texas. I grew up in Southeast Texas,
Yeah.
uh, raised by a single mom. Um, got out of Texas and ended up in the Marine Corps because I wanted to change the world, wanted to
Yeah.
make a difference in the world. So, and I thought, yeah, I'll do that. However, I learned I'm not a good rule follower, and that's kind of what you need in the Marine Corps. So I got out of the Marine Corps, and ended up in the music industry. Literally, I worked with some of the biggest celebrities
Yeah.
in the world. I also learned that music there it's very powerful, but it blackens your soul in some ways. There's just so much that is like uh, I I can't really tell you a lot of it,
Yeah.
but I've seen a lot of things. Uh,
I can imagine. Yeah. I can imagine. Yeah.
I still want to make a difference, and that's why I ended up in doing the coffee shop because coffee is the second most widely traded commodity.
Mhm.
Americans the number one consumer, and the poorest countries often are coffee growing countries.
Mhm.
So my thought was, well, how can we say from a church background, how can we say we want to set people free and then we oppress people,
Mhm.
right? In one instance, like how do I best help and not just hurt somebody in the process, right? By buying bad coffee, right?
Yeah.
And so I wanted to be consistent in my faith, and
Mhm.
that's how the coffee shop overflow came about. The downside of overflow for me, and the idea of overflow was creating these like fountains, where I was like gonna change the world and community, like the community, the neighborhood, and world, right?
Mhm.
But the problem was that we weren't taking care of ourselves. We learned a lot as a business owner. I don't know if you've experienced this, but you're usually last to get paid,
Oh yeah.
right?
So let's do this quick. I know. So you South Texas, and like
Hmm.
that's the joke I was making yesterday. You
Yeah.
heard the joke I said that's where they make white people.
Yeah.
like, so South Texas Marine Corps. Then you got out of it. How you end up to Chicago, and from Marine, what did you end up doing before you opened this shop? And maybe before we go into this shop, how did you end up even thinking about like, oh, let's do a coffee shop instead of like, hey, let's do a restaurant? You know. Um,
Yeah. I
mhm.
think some was just learning about the coffee industry.
Mhm.
That's what led us into that and wanting to build intentional community. That
How did you stumble though in the coffee? Were you somewhere traveling, or were you just like, coffee is a just is this was like a more kind of brainstorming, you and
some
Amanda?
I mean, I growing up in the South, and I did live a lot of time in New Orleans too. You
Hmm.
know, those kind of places like Cheers.
Hmm.
That was what I wanted to create, a community, and especially now, like everybody. The reason we're like hurting a lot is people aren't in community, right? And we think we're alone, and all of this. So that was kind of our reasoning into that, and just making a difference. You can't, and faith too. I
Hmm.
can't say one thing and do something else. Usually, from a faith perspective, if something keeps coming up and you're like, God, somebody needs to do something about this. Usually, that's you,
Hmm.
right? Now, going into entrepreneurship, you have to have some degree of naivety, being naive that everything's going to be perfect, it's going to be easy.
Yeah.
However, I will tell you, if you're starting in business, it is going to be hard. But if you knew how hard it is or would be, you wouldn't step into it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a challenge for a lot of people because all we do is we look on Instagram and say, "Oh, look, they got a Ferrari. Um, let's be just like them." And you're like, "They took 20 years to get that, maybe,
Yeah.
right? Or it's rental."
Mhm.
Um, you know,
That's true. Yeah. But that's true though. Like also with the entrepreneur, like yourself, like your or just me also. People always say like there's something. It's like almost kind of we kind of delusional, or we kind of like we love the process of building something like what could be, or so not necessarily like just to be like the flashy thing, but to just be like, hey, if I build this, become successful, it's like that's the rewards of
yeah,
not necessarily the money, just to be like a build it kind
yeah.
of thing. So it's nice. So let's talk about the coffee shop, right? So because I always love the idea of like there's some places where I'll be like in my neighborhood, I will walk around. There's this coffee spot, and
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
oh, this is perfect. It's like a
yeah,
nice neighborhood coffee spot. People there hang out. Sometimes they do like a Wednesday poet or some
yeah.
band,
All
whatever.
kinds of
Yeah. So in my head, I'm like, if I had some money, I would do that. Like, because it feels like it's like a community, almost like you know the owner, and the owner knows the people that goes there all the time. But if you're saying this can be actually a losing business, in my head, still I'm like, should I open a coffee shop or should I open a barber shop? And then if not, like, why? Maybe walk us through from the start, from the coffee shop that you open.
yeah.
And what was the name first? Sorry, I meant to
Oh,
ask
it
you.
was Overflow. The coffee shop
Overflow.
name was Overflow. Yeah,
Overflow.
and we did sell it, so it's still around. We just don't own it.
So,
The thing that I think that people don't realize is the cost of business,
mhm,
right? In any of those brick and mortars, and why people are leaving, oftentimes brick and mortar. So you think about um, cost of just renting one building versus 10,
mhm,
right? Brings down cost, right? Buying bread, when you have 10 locations, your cost goes down, right? Muffins, all that stuff. Whenever you are building a business, there's labor costs, right?
mhm.
All of those things play into your cup of coffee. $3 cup of coffee, and if you don't have foot traffic, there's a lot that has to go in just to the labor of the staff, not
Yeah.
even everything else.
Mhm,
So if you know the owner of that place, know that they're doing it as out of a labor of love,
mhm.
and oftentimes they're not getting paid a ton. But how do they build a good system to make sure they are not just going to be there for a few minutes and then gone, right? Because that's the reality. Majority of businesses fail within the first 5 years.
Mhm.
My hope now and what I do is to increase the success rate, right? Because if they're not successful, they can't serve anybody. If they died from a heart attack because they are
Start.
overworked,
Yeah.
business
Overwork.
is gone,
Hmm.
right? And then we say, "Oh, poor them. I love those guys. Love that place,"
Yeah.
but we didn't like think about it, um, in the long range, and some of it, man. I have like war stories, and I think that's the thing of a business owner, or what I call there's entrepreneurs out there
Mhm.
and there's entrepreneurs, right? The entrepreneurs are those ones that they want to be an entrepreneur. They'll have all the spreadsheets and everything else, but they
Yeah.
never actually did anything,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The
They're scared
entrepreneur,
to jump in. Uh-huh. Hmm.
yeah, and there's a lot of them, right?
Yeah.
And if you are that, that's okay. Just
Mm.
know you're a entrepreneur, not an
Entrepreneur.
entrepreneur yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to step into it, a true entrepreneur, I believe, and business owner has arrows in his back, right? Has overcome some things, has figured out how to how the banking system works a little bit, right?
Yeah.
They start learning and they have people around them. So I tell every business owner, if they're starting, if you want to start a coffee shop, for example, three things I tell every business owner: know that that you're called to it, especially if you want to start a brick and mortar like a
Mm.
barber shop or whatever. Know that
Mm.
right? And then have a team around you, right? People that care about you, not just your output,
Yeah.
not just your customers, because your customers are going to say, "How's it going?" And they don't want to hear it sucks right now. They want you to say it's fine no matter what, right?
Yeah.
Um, because they're coming for an experience, right? So you
Yeah.
can't tell them, "Yeah, my cat died this morning," whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to have a good team. And
Mm.
then the third thing is know your numbers. This is
So,
why I'm a Profit First certified and Infinite Banking certified, is because knowing your numbers and understanding those levers are going to help you go further. But a lot of times we say, well, I'm good at sales, or I'm a good barber. I'm good at that, but I don't know how to manage.
Yeah.
Like, well, then you should be a barber in somebody else's store, then and not be a leader, or you know what I'm saying in that regard.
Let's repeat that. Like when for someone maybe who's thinking about opening either a barbershop or coffee, to remember, customer, they're coming to your location for the experience, or to just kind of forget whatever they are,
Yeah.
like, stressed out work or whatever. So they don't want to come to your place and then hear like, oh, my cat died, or to hear like depressed news. So they don't want to hear that. I was trying to remember that. That was funny.
But
So
you have to process it somewhere,
mm,
and you're there all the time, and it sucks, and literally the coffee shop almost broke our marriage,
mhm,
right? And those are the realities of business, right? And so how do you make sure you're successful and still have your marriage
mhm.
and not be an absentee father? All of those things are really important to think about.
Okay. So the time when you had this shop, right?
Mhm.
The coffee shop, did you, before you got out, before you sold it, like, and you learned this process where did you end up getting out of it, like selling the shop, because after discovering the system that you want to use to help other, or did you get out of it because you want to be like, hey, I want to have more time with my family, with my wife or kids or
Yeah.
whatever? Or how did
Well,
that?
life changed, right? Circumstances changed. I was a caretaker of my mother-in-law at the time.
Mhm,
We had a year-to-year lease on our rent on where we were at, and that wasn't helpful. We had a flood in the business. Luckily, I had my life insurance policy that was designed right that I could access and use to overcome the flood. Otherwise, I would have closed, not sold it.
mhm,
Uh, and then we found out we were pregnant, right? We were having a baby, and we're like, things are saying a different story. Maybe what Overflow is doing and where we're going, maybe two different things. And it is illegal to have a baby behind the bar,
yeah.
that kind of thing. So we were like, well, I can do all kinds of things. I can eat ramen all day long, and that's okay theoretically. Um, but I can't do that. That would be child abuse if I did that kind of thing. However, as a business owner, you can not pay yourself, and that's okay, right? So that was one of the reasons that I moved away from that.
Mhm,
And then as we were selling and my wife's pregnant, my wife had told me, go get a job. And I was like, I'm not employable. How am I going to go get a job? So I actually interviewed for my mentor to work with him, and he told me no. He said, "No, you're an entrepreneur. I can't hire you because you'll break my stuff, pretty much."
mm,
And I was like, "Dude, I've been giving you clients. How come?" And anyway, a couple months later, he's like, "I have an idea. How about you and your wife start your own agency, and then and I'll coach you." I was like, that sounds even better.
mhm,
And my wife's 7 months pregnant at the time, so no one's going to hire her anyway. So then we ended up doing this, and then finding out, oh, there's a lot of opinions about money out there. We just knew, again,
mhm,
this system really helped us.
mhm,
So we're like, well, it sounds like a great idea. Let's help other people because we're activists first and foremost. We wanted to make sure that we are helping people not stay in poverty, but come out of it if possible. Like,
mhm. Yeah,
reach their dreams.
yeah. So with this, I was trying to Google this place, the Overflow Coffee, and I see one. One is in Hillsboro, Texas. Is
Oh,
that
it's in Chicago.
Chicago?
You go to Chicago and you'll find it.
Okay, okay. Um,
Um,
so let's. I'm trying to, like, when I was reading your bio, it says cash flow specialist.
Yeah.
And in my head, I'm like, what's the difference between cash flow specialist and a financial advisor?
Yeah. So a financial advisor, I believe, is somebody who says, you know what you need to do? Put it into the 401k, put it into the market fund, make sure you get money in Tesla stock and all of this and Amazon stock. And so we end up investing in other people's businesses to grow that. At
Yeah,
the same time, we love and we say we love small businesses and all of that, and we don't
yeah,
invest in ourselves, right?
mhm, mhm,
And the main reason businesses fail isn't because of passion, it's because of lack of capital and cash flow. That or they've they either do two things. They overpay themselves or never pay themselves, right? So you got to figure out, how do I go from making sure I pay myself a fair wage, right? Making sure that I'm doing the right profit allocations. And why I love Profit First is saying, okay, my business is doing great. I'm giving myself every quarter a profit distribution, because we want that when we put into the 401k assets, and in that,
mhm.
those are wealth managers looking and saying, well, you can invest, put in the S&P 500, do all of this, right?
For your retirement.
For your retirement. And
Yeah.
and here's the thing I think about. The S&P has gone up and to the right,
Mhm,
right? For the past 20, 30 years.
mhm,
How's that feeling for most people? Most people are stressed out, overwhelmed. They are just, yeah, feeling like they're in chaos, which is confusing, haphazard, anxious,
mhm,
overwhelming, stressful. We don't need that. We want something different.
mhm.
Theoretically, everything is going up and to the right, but there's a thing of not understanding how cash flow works, because you can even put into, let's say, a 401k, getting a 6% match, right? But yet you have a credit card balance that's 25% interest.
Yeah.
Cash flow management, maybe you don't need to be putting into this to build a get rid of that high interest debt,
Mhm,
right? Maybe you can create something that'll build where you can do wealth accumulation or wealth, where you access for me, infinite banking. I access my policy to buy other assets, right? I've used my life insurance policy, infinite banking, for taking care of high interest debt, an emergency, a trip to Ireland, um, a 20% down payment on my personal residence, and used it for buying a building that I'm closing on today, right? For my office,
That's
right?
awesome. Uh-huh.
All with the same money. And guess what? I'm not 59 and a half. I'm not there yet. If I would have put it in other things, there would have been some challenges.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking cash flow and making sure, Nelson Nash, the founder of Infinite Banking, he says, don't steal the peas from your own grocery store. So I do pay it back, but I'm thinking about future me, present me, and becoming the bank,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
This is what every business owner needs to hear, right? Don't do what the banks tell you to do what the banks do, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
think about it. I mean, you were doing tickets,
Mhm,
right, on for shows on Fridays and Saturday nights, right?
mhm.
How much did the banks make on those shows, right? Every fee, processing fee, and all of this, they never showed up to one of your shows, right?
Yeah.
But yet you paid them,
Mhm.
and you're like, how's that? And thinking about interest rates and
Yeah.
all of that. And so cash flow management is like looking at your bigger wallet. How do we build a good foundation? How do we have an emergency fund? How do we access? Because here's the bigger thing that I think is really powerful. What's
So,
what's more
mhm,
important than life insurance
yeah.
is financing. We finance everything we buy. How do we control that system?
Yeah. So the way I'm understanding, so I was thinking like if someone wants to open a, like coffee shop or barber shop, you're telling them run away. But it sounds like you're not saying run away. You're saying, hey, I have a system that can help you be
Yeah.
profitable, do good, and have a really good cash flow kind of thing. That's what you're saying. You have a
Well,
system. Mhm,
yeah, and I don't think it's ever run away.
mhm,
I am really grateful that I did it.
mhm.
It was a hard thing. You got to know that that you're called, because it'll get hard, and hold things with an open hand, right? But don't shy away, but also be real, right?
But again, I know, yeah, it's gonna be hard, but by having someone like you
Mhm.
walk them through, be there, like someone who helped them to kind of bridge or uh, plug all the blind spot, right? So
Mhm.
they don't end up to do the hard way the way you did, right? So they're like following almost like a blueprint, like, hey, this is the right way. So yeah, there's gonna be a lot of work, but at the same time, it's like, Fusa, I have this brand and with his system, it kind of help
Yeah.
to do to.
Well, that goes into what we call the still method, and we have a mission, or a community, that's wealthwisdom.mn.co. It's a community for business owners, uh, and it's helping them think about the financial system that they have, right? Because
Yeah.
again, we'll sell things, but we don't like reverse architect and figure out what is our goals, how do we build a good foundation, and understanding you have to be a CFO of your business,
Mm,
right? Before you hire a CFO, you have to understand the numbers at least a little bit.
yeah.
So this community that we have is helping think that part, where you can not only just work in your business, right, but work on your business. There's a difference between serving coffee and developing a marketing strategy,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm,
That's working in it versus on it, right?
mhm.
So how do we build that so that way you're successful? Because you know it's a both and so that's something we've thought about a lot. So that way, we have less failure rates. Again, having the system, knowing when you're being taken care of, understanding the taxes, having a team around you, because we're not all going to be masters of everything, but having a safe money specialist. That's what I do. What if the oh crap happens? How can I be okay? um, but then you also want the what if a great opportunity happens,
Mhm,
and I lock my money up into a 401k or something else, and I want to buy a barber shop. Well, I can't even access that money without penalty.
mhm.
That's not good.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know
Yeah. So, quick question: with this infinity banking, right?
yep.
Um, can this work? Or maybe, so I'm thinking, can this work on anyone who has brick and mortar kind of business? Can someone who has online business can, or someone who just starting, what would you walk them through? Like, okay, like you don't have anything. Like, let's say because you're borrowing from, you say, your life insurance or whatever.
Yeah.
So they don't have life insurance. You're encouraging them. So what exactly will be the process there?
Yeah,
For
well,
them to
the
start?
first thing I want people to do is start building those muscles of saving.
Mhm,
Saving is not investing, and what I call is the 10-10-10 savings rule. Saving for long term, saving for medium term, saving for short term, right? So you save 10%. That's 10% of all you earn is for you to keep, right? That's richest man in Babylon. So saving, I just happen to put it into a life insurance policy that I have access to, right? And then I'm a business owner. I don't have anything in the market, right? Because I think my biggest investment is me and my business, right? Right or wrong, that's what I want to build right now. I want to build the foundation. So what you want to do, remember that overflow principle was building a fountain, but most people, and what I look at right now, people's foundations are upside down. They don't even have $400 in case of emergency, right?
mhm. Yeah.
And then they go into emergency. They paid off all their debt. They yelled, "I'm debt free," and then emergency happens, and they're back. well, what we need to do is build a solid foundation, right?
Mhm.
Build the rock. That's where you'll see in our logo. You build the foundation and then you build up from there, right? And then you can do a lot more. And if a storm happens, like COVID, for example, your financial portfolio isn't going to just tank because something happens, or Jerome Powell says something, or who knows what it'll be tomorrow. I mean, like, literally, I swear, like, we could have aliens show up tomorrow at
Yeah,
the rate we're going.
yeah,
um, but I don't want aliens to show up to then destroy everything I've done, because that just screwed up my whole financial system. I'm like, really? That's
yeah,
that is not good, right?
yeah.
Does it make sense? Like, and that's what people are doing. And I'm like, that's not smart. And so that's why our old business was called Grandma's Wealth Wisdom.
Mhm.
Sometimes intelligence skips a generation. Look at our world and say, all right, how's that working out for most people? And how do we build sanity and build businesses that we love and love us back?
Yeah, yeah. Question. I'm in my head. I'm kind of going all over the place, thinking about like how can this be doable for like try. Let's try. We're trying to help
Yeah.
anyone who's even like close to the minimum wage, where they're getting
Yeah.
paid minimum wage.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure how can they leverage this system
Yeah.
where they're able to kind of build worth, right?
Yeah.
With their either doing the saving, you said the 10-10 saving
Yeah.
plan. So, hmm,
So we have to learn that we are in somewhat of a crazy system. You live in the south side of Chicago. All of a sudden, payday loans are everywhere. We're
yeah,
paying interest 25%, and
exactly.
we never can get out of it, right?
Mhm,
And it gets hard, right? And you're like, how do I get out of this? And you just can't, because the system is designed to keep us in slavery,
mhm,
actually, right? It's
mhm,
designed to keep us in bondage to the banks, right? And so what we have to learn is, how do we build a better system, right? And even saving in a savings account, there's no money in it, right? There's not, like, the banks have said, well, that's not profitable for us.
mhm,
Let's make a different way. So for me, when I started our policies, right, we did $400 a month to long-term savings. $400 a month when we made hardly anything. That was
mhm,
$800 total.
mhm,
Now, $800 is like nothing, right? And I'm able to use the monies that I've built, because I'm protecting my greatest asset, me, right? That's part of the life insurance component. But I have that cash component that I'm using in the policy, that I'm able to leverage for, maybe it's trying to get out of debt, right? I'm building wealth while accessing the policy to overcome the drag of debt.
mhm.
Or as the policy is growing, and if you notice, there's a little on our logo, there's an arrow going up, right? So I access the policy to buy a building, and then I'll pay it back, right? But I'm becoming the bank. But you have to start with where you're at. First, you got to do an assessment of yourself and question everything. Why am I in debt? How did I end up here? Why do I have 200,000 in student debt? Whenever, I mean, this is crazy too. Like, they'll give students tons of debt
Yeah,
to go to school, and a
mhm,
business owner can't get anything to start. I'm like, really?
yeah,
That's
yeah.
ridiculous. Uh,
Because they know what they're doing.
yeah.
As a business, you might pay this too quick, so they might as well just give the student who they can leverage their interest for years before you
Or,
forget.
yeah, or that it's a racket, right? And so we want to think about that and
Mhm.
understand. Like, I'm not saying that doing a policy works for everybody. I'm
Yeah.
saying it is valuable, and your need for cash flow and financing will outweigh your rate of return in the market. And average rate of returns, in my opinion, don't
Mhm.
mean anything anyway, because it can be manipulated. Um, you know,
Yeah. So with this branding, like with this your company, you and Amanda, the Worth Wisdom Financial, right?
yep,
So do you maybe if I missed this, help me with this. So do you pick individual or do you do like a seminar? Like how do you help exactly people? Like do you um
yeah.
yeah,
A
maybe
lot,
maybe
a lot is education. There's a lot of what happens now is people
Mhm.
think they know. They listen to Dave Ramsey, or
Yeah.
they just parrot information, and a
Okay.
lot is education, right? And I told you, chaos,
Mhm.
right? Like try and file your taxes and look at the tax code. It's confusing, haphazard, anxious,
Mhm.
overwhelming, stressful. Same thing, tax code.
Yeah.
401ks. People want to know all the ins and outs of a policy, yet they can't even tell me anything about their 401k. They just do it because it's what they're told to do,
Yeah.
right? So a lot is education, helping the client think for themselves. Unfortunately, that's not popular today, of learning how to think for yourself and learning how to understand that.
Yeah.
And it's not a quick fix, right? It's really takes work to build a foundation,
Mhm.
right? And so building a foundation, though, like on a house, yeah, you build a house, the foundation work takes some time,
Mhm.
but then all of a sudden you see the house go up, right, really fast.
Mhm.
But a lot of times we're looking at how can I get around it without any cost, or without, blah blah blah. And so what I do is doing a full financial analysis. You go to our website, you can do a free financial analysis. We'll look and say, this is what I would do, asking your dreams and goals and all of that. But most of the time, we need to reverse architect. Like when you build a house, you kind of have a dream of what that's going to look like, right?
Mhm.
Most people, I will tell you, have no idea what their dreams are or where they want to end up. And that's setting themselves up for failure. That's why our still method is so helpful, because it's setting your sights. If you don't know where you're going, you'll get there,
Mhm.
right? Tracking your in and out, helping to learn that system of tracking, inspecting your progress, looking for 1% adjustments, and living deliberately, right? Most people are not deliberate. They're just kind of sleepwalking through life. And that's, I think, by design, to keep us sleepwalking, because we're called, we're mainly called consumers nowadays, and that's why we're wondering why we're not healthy.
Mhm.
We're not meant to just be consumers.
Mhm. Yeah.
Is that
Um,
helpful?
yes, yes. And I was thinking too, I know you talk about how you like as a business, like a business founder or owner, you also you talk about something about like profit first
Yep.
and pay themselves first.
Yep.
I guess it's the balance of like can you explain a little bit more? Also, let's go a little bit deeper into that. I know you touched off a little bit.
Yep.
Can you go a little bit deeper in that? Because like I know I always hear this thing is like, hey, don't run out of money
Yep.
as a founder, don't run out of money, don't run out of money, and that's actually the really worst thing to run out of money. So, but when you're talking about profit first and pay themselves,
Yep.
can you go a little bit deeper? Exactly.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
I see a lot of things that happen in businesses.
Mhm.
Mike Michalowicz is the writer of Profit First, and he says that um, basically you create cash eating monsters, right? They always want more money. There's always going to be a new thing and this and that. And business owners we love squirrels. So we'll
Mhm.
chase after, and we'll like, we'll buy this thing and we'll do this thing. Right. And then we end up saying, oh, wait, where'd all the money go? Oh yeah, I went to that thing that I never used.
Yeah.
Right. What Profit First does is put those things, kind of like the Dave Ramsey thing of envelope system. So what he calls is target allocation percentages. So 30% should be your operation expense, right? 30% as taps. You might not start there. It might be 50 or 60 or whatever, but you want to like lower your operation expense to a manageable number, right?
Mhm.
15% goes to taxes, right? You know, you'd be surprised how many business owners come to tax time, they forgot that they owe that money and it wasn't actually theirs,
Yep.
right? And I'm like, that wasn't yours in the first place. So you need to budget for it and put that into an account so then you're not screwed, right?
Mhm.
Um, 50% should be owner's pay, right? You should make sure that you're getting paid,
Mhm.
and 5% towards profit, right? That is your emergency funds, what they call opportunity funds. Maybe you're using some of that for paying off debt, but 5% towards profit. All of those are percentage based, not number based, because your business is living and active, right? It's changing, and if you have a pulse, you can kind of look and say, all right, we're going high in the OPEX. We need to control that. Or 80/20 rule, this is really working. I need to put more fire to that.
Mhm.
But it's all metrics, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And also you talk about the what's the word, income maximization strategy. Is it
Yep.
this part of that kind of can you go maybe also into detail about that?
Yeah, I think that's again looking and saying, okay, where does other tools play into this? How
Mhm.
can we make sure that our income is growing, meaning sure we're paying ourselves?
Mhm.
Maybe you might have some money in a old 401k, right? Or um, or we have lazy money where we're going and putting into certain things and losing a lot of money here, or an annuity, right? Sometimes putting into an annuity, if it's for retirement, it's all about income. In the end, really, who cares about rate of return? Doesn't even matter. What matters is how much income do I have? Am I able to live sustainably and leave somebody money, hopefully? But really, that's the end goal for
Mhm.
everybody. So how do we make sure that we have income regardless of what happens? Again, of what Putin says or aliens, I want to make sure my income doesn't go down. You know, which it's happening in the market right now, and people are like, "Oh, it's free." I'm freaked out.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and guess what? In 10 years, it'll go back up, and it'll go back down again, and up again, and down again. And I think about this from a I don't know, abusive relationship,
Mhm.
right? Like no one would be in an abusive relationship if we were like punched in the face and then we're told, well, they'll get better. Like, it's okay. You
Yeah.
know, it'll be
Mhm.
fine. They didn't mean it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah,
Mhm.
but you would tell somebody to get out of that relationship.
Yeah.
Yet we're conditioned to stay in that kind of relationship and deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, that's not logical. But yet our world is not logical. And I'm like, uh, that's not unhealthy, and we wonder why we're not doing well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep. Yep. I love it. I love the analogy too. That's
Oh
all.
man, I've been in abusive,
Yeah.
not physical, but
Yeah.
others, and I'm like
Yeah. Financial. You're like,
very
no.
similar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So I know we touched a little bit before we got drilled like in a different direction. You're talking about like real estate investing and self financing. Can you maybe let's do that as our last question before we go? Can you go into a little bit detail about that because we talked about the business side,
yeah,
but now I guess maybe I don't know if it's the same, but yeah, let's talk about that like real estate investing and self financing.
yeah. I think that's again looking and saying, okay, what tools do I have? Everybody's a real estate investor nowadays.
Yeah.
But what's the interest rates, right? No one asks about that, or hard money lending. And so this is something I just released a podcast video that's out with my friend Jay Helms,
Mhm.
and he's W2 capitalist. what's cool is people are always looking for money, right? So for me, I'm using my life insurance policies, my advance from old me. I've been saving for myself in the future.
Yeah.
Old me is giving current me a loan for this real estate property. I'm paying it back, and I'm looking at myself in two different ways. But I'm using that, and I'm now creating an asset, and they call this the and asset. I'm using the and asset to create two assets, actually three, because I used my policy, my life insurance policy that was built in the coffee years
Hmm.
to start this, and using it to buy a building that my staff is going to be housed in. So they're going to be able to work faster and better. And that's going to just make me more assets. So I created three assets from one. And I've thought again, how much did that cost me if it's a commercial real estate building? Interest rate maybe 6 or 7%, but my interest on my policy is less. Do the math, right? What's better? And thinking about taxes, right? I want to pay my taxes now, because here's another question that I ask people: would you ever get into business with somebody where they would make the terms of service in the future?
Probably
They'll
not.
tell you the rules later.
Hmm.
Would you ever do that?
Probably not.
And where they change their uh, leaders every 4 years,
Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
Never, we'd never do that, right?
Yeah.
We'd
Yeah.
say that's crazy, but yet that's what we do with our
Mhm.
401k money all the time. And we say,
Because
well,
it's
yeah, but it'll get bigger.
management kind of, yeah.
No, the presidents and all of this, it changes because taxes. We
Yeah.
say, well, I'll defer that. I don't
Yeah.
want to pay my taxes now. Do you think taxes are going to go up or down in the future?
Probably always going to go up. Right?
Up.
Yeah.
So why would you defer something that if you grow money into it, you're going to pay a higher amount later,
Yeah.
and you don't know the rules?
Yeah.
That's not good business.
Because,
So
yeah,
I think,
for your rotation. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. So I think again, cash flow. What is that? How can I control everything? And me at some point, I'm going to do more syndication deals, which is like putting in with other people, right, for bigger deals. I don't want to own more properties. I want to just give it to somebody else and then get a return. And I'll use my policies because I know the cost of money on that, and I'll build more wealth. So it's thinking systematically that we have that
Yeah.
got that
Yeah.
the insurance companies have, using them to our benefit because the rich do. Don't do what the rich tell you to do what the rich do, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Learn that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Brandon, thank you so much, my friend. This is a lot of information and a lot of value here. So let's do
Yeah,
this.
sorry, I can go all over the place, because
Then
it is, all of this is so interconnected,
yeah.
and we think, if I'm a health and wellness coach, our health affects our minds and affects and our money habits affect,
Yeah.
and it's all interconnected, and we just gotta think that way.
Yeah. Thank you so much again, my friend. Let's do this again. I know I always love to summarize things again. Before we go, can you summarize again who's Brandon Neely and the Worth Wisdom Company, and also kind of maybe mention how can people find you, like either the
Yeah.
social media or anything? Yeah.
Well, one thing, we will have a new website because we've left Grandma. Our old business was Grandma's Wealth Wisdom. She is being retired,
Mhm.
and we're going into Wealth Wisdom FP. The website will be released in about a week.
Mhm.
So if you look up wealthwisdomfp.com, you're going to find me. And we have YouTube. We have a podcast, Wealth Wisdom FP Financial Partners. And we also, if you want to do a meeting, Just go on that website, click request a meeting, and you can do a free discovery call with us. And also, we have a community. If you go to wealthwisdom.mn.co, it's a paid membership, but we're really wanting to help business owner specific. How do we build a profitable, sustainable business? And a lot of it's just being around other people who are implementing what we call the still method. So that way they're not just chasing their tails. Like, I don't want that. Nobody wants that.
Yeah.
So we want to have success for everybody. So go to Wealth Wisdom FP Financial Partners, and you will find me, and totally subscribe to my channel or our channel. You'll learn that Amanda,
Yeah.
she's a lot. She's an amazing speaker.
Can they find you also just by searching your name, Brandon?
Oh yeah, you
Mhm.
can do that too.
Okay.
Brandon Neely. If you look up Brandon Neely, I'm the white one. Usually,
Yeah, I think we do that so far. Yeah.
yeah. There is usually Brandon Neely's are African American, or there's a Guantanamo Bay guy that did some bad stuff. I think that is
So
not me.
that's
That's
not
not me.
that's not the Brandon you're looking for.
Yeah,
I
that is
guess by
not.
reading they will know which one. If they click the name, they're gonna end up knowing which one
Yeah,
they're looking for.
yeah.
Well,
I don't know what he did, but I'm like, this Guantanamo Bay from
yeah,
2011. He just like is
yeah,
taking up all my
all the news and stuff.
yeah. I'm
Spot.
like, come on now, get out of here. So I want to dominate on the SEO, not you.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. All right, Brandon. Thank you so much again for taking the time to just kind of add value to the podcast. I really appreciate, my friend.
No problem. It's
And
great to be here, Ed.
yeah, thanks you again. Just give me a second, brother.